Welcome, everybody, to Publishing 101 here at Casual Connect. As Scott said, I'm Neil Haldar. I run business development for GREE International. My esteemed panelists to my left. On my far left is Alex Rosen from GREE, and next to him is Ray from Monkey Fun. I'll let you guys introduce yourself real quick. Alex, why don't you start us off?
Hey everyone, thank you for coming out today. My name is Alex Rosen. I'm the VP of Product at GREE. I work on a bunch of our games, both at our studio here in San Francisco and also some of our publishing titles as well, which we'll obviously be talking about today.
Yeah, hi, my name is Ray Holmes. I've been in the industry for a while working on PC and console games, and then had a shift when I started working at Zynga, worked on Mafia Wars and was the designer of Farmville. And then I've made sort of a circuit of various Facebook and mobile companies, and now I'm the creative director at Monkey Fun.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate that. So, sort of our collaboration with Monkey Fun has sort of grown out of our Partners Fund and our Partners Initiative. At GREE, we believe very strongly in the creative abilities as well as some of the technical strengths of innovation that we can find out in the marketplace. It would be wrong for us to think that the best innovation always comes from our own internal teams. So when we find really fantastic, highly talented developers out in the marketplace, we have a method, we have a system, we have a process to work with them, both in terms of being their publisher as well as sort of an investment partner in certain cases, to try and support the full life cycle of not just the game, but sort of the whole of the developer, so that they have room to grow and experiment and try lots of different things. Of course, that comes with, the experimentation part comes with some difficulties and friction sometimes. And so one of the topics that I wanted to ask my panelists about were sort of like, it's great to talk about how wonderful publishing goes. And I think every developer and every publisher wants to tell you, yes, we're fantastic. But why don't we jump right into the white elephant in the room and say, what are some of the things that have been difficult? What are some of the things that have been challenging? Ray, I'll start off with you.
Sure. I've worked with a lot of different publishers, and one of the issues that happens is everything's great when the game is going really well,
right?
But the moment that the game goes south in some particular way, some publishers can be very not so nice. And one of the things that has happened a couple of times when we've had some issues with GREE is that they've just kind of stepped up and said, well, what can we do to help? What can we do to resolve this? And we've been pretty happy with that. There's certainly been some design disagreements, and we have found a way to work through those. Whenever necessary, we actually talk about things that have been successful for them and why they've been successful. And even though you have like the numbers of these other games, your game is slightly different, and it has a different kind of mesh so I think that's the most friction has been with, where the design needs to be. I think we're always trying to push the envelope of doing more, and sometimes we were kind of, the brakes were kind of put on, saying, hey, we've got all kinds of other innovative things in this game. Maybe we should, do the best practices for these other features and not just go wild with every single feature in the game. And I've been pretty happy with the results.
Yeah, no, I mean, I had definitely agree with that. I mean, one of the core challenges, though, just to kind of step back, is when you're in a publishing relationship with two separate independent companies, both of those companies are going to bring kind of a point of view of what a game is, what this game can be, and what you want to accomplish. And to me, that's always kind of the kind of central tension in that relationship, is kind of, can you meld your views and your vision right, and work through those thousands and tens of thousands of small decisions that that go into a game. And I think kind of like the biggest challenge is really, even before you get into a contract or before you start, is just really being sure, hey, do we view the world the same way? And we were lucky enough with Monkey Fun that we basically view, what this game can be and what games are in more or less the same way. Sure, we disagree on, tons of stuff, and I'm sure that Ray would be, the first to say that, but we always can come back to that, that early talk where, we basically think this is going this way and we're on the same page there. And I think that if you don't overcome that first challenge, then you're going to set yourself up for just an uphill battle for the entire relationship.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, right? And I think that illumination is really good. In fact, Alex, would you say that the first couple of talks that sort of clearly sets the tone for the rest of the relationship? So do you go back and revisit that discussion or sort of those basics as the relationship is in operation while the game is being made? You go back and go, yeah, here's why we got into it to begin with, and sort of discuss a little bit, or tell us a little bit more about sort of like the things that have worked and how do you keep it working?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that you kind of do perennially kind of go back to what your goals were and what you set out to accomplish. Like much like a game has rules and things that you can or can't do. Those sort of like first 5 talks kind of set those boundaries up. And I think again not every publisher-publishee relationship will work, right? And you kind of need to be willing to say, hey, this one is great, let's go for it, or hey, we like these guys, we think they're good people, but it's not just gonna work for us now. I don't know, Ray, do you have any thoughts on kind of thing, times when we've pushed and pulled more, or and how we've worked past that?
Well, we certainly had some, various issues that I said that GREE has been very supportive. We had some growing pains with our servers, and we had a server team of 2, and GREE stepped in and helped us, brought some people into our office to work together on these issues to get them done. I think there was a lot of, and I remember saying this many times to people at GREE that, there's a difficulty with meshing 2 companies together. We need to figure out how our terminology overlaps, and how they look at games. So even when we had an analyst that was helping us on the GREE side, and the terminology that's used in GREE games is different from the terminology that we use in our games. And so even something as the terms in the analytics data was something that was a little bit of an issue that we had to overcome. And because they're as open as they can be with our with us, but obviously we can't have full access to their servers because they have other games running as well. And so there was a lot of issues with making sure that because we have our own analytics system, making sure that our data was getting to their servers properly was a big issue. And eventually we worked our way through it, and one of our programmers set up sort of a duplicate of the GREE database. And so we were sending data to our database, which was a duplicate of theirs, and we were able to more quickly resolve problems. So, I think for everybody involved, we thought it took a lot longer than we would like it to, but they were very supportive, and we kind of worked through these issues until it was resolved. And I think as far as like going back to what started the relationship in the first place, I think very much for Monkey Fun, we're a tech-based company. We have our own technology, founded by programmers, ex-LucasArts, and so we are more console design people and technology people, but we don't necessarily know as much about the marketing and about the analytics and the user acquisition, and so that GREE is very good at that. So for us, it was a perfect match between skill sets.
And that was actually going to lead me into my next question, which is sort of like, there's some really good reasons why a quality developer needs the help of a strong publisher. I guess I'm curious, straight from your perspective, what do you think you guys have learned out of the partnership so far with GREE in terms of sort of the BI and the analytics and some of the decision-making process? Was it different than you expected?
I think there's a lot of little nitty-gritty things that I didn't necessarily know about before. I had certainly heard about the ways in which for example, marketing will tune the ads and the product, the facing of the product. But I didn't understand how much nitty gritty and how much little things could change and how big of a difference it could make with how expensive it is to acquire users. And just a little bit of change in how expensive it is to acquire users makes a really big difference. And so there was lots of little things like that. And there's certainly been, we do some analysis on our side, but we don't have any, people who are really trained in analysis. And our current analytics person on the GREE side is literally a rocket scientist. And it's awesome, the kinds of things that he's able to come up with and the mathematical calculations that I just have no clue how they work. But we can get really great intelligence out of the analytics that we've had from my horse days, but weren't able to dig in the same way that we can now.
Right, very good. And then sort of the same question, Alex, sort of like out of the learning of working with sort of like a developer like Monkey Fund, do you think that we've sort of figured out more ways of how to grow and learn from sort of the early days of the relationship, and what sort of some of the early takeaways in terms of that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the kind of big takeaways has been sort of like what you want to focus on as the publisher and what you want to go like hands off on. So something that I've seen, both in, this relationship and in others, it's very easy, to want to comment on everything, right? Say, hey, let's change this, do that. I played this for 5 minutes last night and I don't think it's cool or fun, right? But something that I've seen is, ultimately, like, we consider this Monkey Fund's game. Like, we're a big part of it, of course, but, this is Ray's baby, kind of. And, you need to sort of be careful to not have that, like, I don't know what the right term is, like helicopter parent almost, where you come in and say, hey, let's just do this, and not really thinking about all the thought and time and effort that a fairly large team has put into it, and instead sort of focus on your strengths, do what we're good at, which is we're very good at marketing, we're very good at BI, as Ray has said, and we're certainly good at design and gameplay too, but I think in most of our publishing relationships that marketing and BI is our comparative advantage, and we've learned to sort of up front bring that to the table and try to really bring that as a value add.
Right. Very good. Thanks, Alex. I think lots of developers are worried about having strong relationships with publishers because they feel like they give up a lot of control. They give up a lot of sort of the future of the product and how that extends out. It impacts the developer in terms of the who they choose to be in bed with, and obviously the financial considerations and all of this. One of the things, however, that I think some developers forget about is crisis management. And it's hard when the publisher shows up and they're serious about your product, and all of a sudden you have 1 million installs in 2 weeks, and you have a ton of new users that are banging on infrastructure. It's hard to test for those cases. I know we chatted a little bit about this, but I think an important topic to talk about in terms of the publisher side of the relationship is crisis management. And how do we have strong communication that goes back to the early points of our discussion and that led into the relationship? So I wonder if perhaps, Alex, you could lead us off a little bit in talking about sort of like when there are issues that pop up that are immediate and urgent. How do we handle that with the developer?
Sure. Yeah. And those will just always happen, right? Like,
right.
No matter how much planning has gone into it, how careful you are, and how well set it is, something happens. So as Ray was talking about, we did have this one moment early in launch. Game was doing really awesome, and there was just so many downloads. We were just being hit by a torrent there, and I think the game was down, it was up and down, and it was a real crisis, right, where you're spending money on it, and you want the game to succeed. what do you do? And I think kind of like the most important learning there is, basically from the publisher end, like we just kind of decided, to drop everything and just to help however possible, right? So we just, we went so far as to actually pull off guys from our games in-house and just brought them over, to Ray's office. And I think that, as long as you, keep, the game's best interest in mind and just kind of do what's right there in the short term, then, that's usually going to guide you in the right direction. And also on, the same time, the side, like Ray's team was just like very open about that. And I think that you kind of need to be open on both sides. Like, they, could have gotten defensive there of, hey, this is our code, this is our game, we know what to do, we don't want your help right now. But instead they're like, hey, we've both worked hard here, let's just work together and get past that. So it's challenging, and but to me, like, those are the moments when your relationship really shines through.
Yeah, and I think it also takes a high quality developer that can be honest with themselves and realize sort of like when they need to lean or when they need sort of like more bullets in the gun to get stuff done. I guess that takes confidence in yourself, but also confidence in the partner and in the relationship. So I guess, Ray, I'd love to hear a little bit more about what was it in the early days of our discussions that led to you to have that confidence when there was crisis?
I think we were, certainly in the early days, we were aware of the success that GREE had. I think to sort of extend the discussion more about the server issues, we only have a server team of 2 people, and My Horse had quite a few downloads, and was something that we handled. And I think there was just something different about how the League of War was being hit. The servers were being hit harder. We had PvP, and so there was stuff that was happening in our game that we hadn't had in My Horse. And I think that the server team, now they know, but at the time they weren't really that aware of what was going on there. And so because GREE had done so many games, and all of them are online only components, and ours is sort of a mixture of online and offline, which was a little bit of a mesh issue. I think some of the issues that GREE has with their games are slightly different. But there was so much expertise in the GREE server team that when we did finally, have them over to our office and start having these discussions, our server team learned a lot about things that they didn't realize they didn't know. And so it was a great help, not just at the crisis moment, but also I think long term for understanding how to do our servers correctly and how to extend and improve our own internal server and analytics technology.
Cool, thanks. That's a great answer. So I'm just curious, out there in the audience, how many of you guys are developers looking for a publisher? There's a couple hands up. How many of you are just developers? You may have a deal or you building your own stuff. Very good. Any publishers out in the audience? Oh, a whole bunch of you. So I think given the mix that's here in the room today, I guess, Ray, I'd love to get sort of some feedback from you and maybe help out some of our members in the audience. When you guys are a super successful developer, you've worked with lots of publishers in the past in different capacities in your own personal career. What would be some advice that you would give to a young developer or a bunch of developers in terms of what to look for in terms of a publisher, and maybe some things that might be red flags or things that when you meet with the publisher and you have those early discussions, sort of like, maybe that's not such a good thing?
So I think one of the things that's very helpful is to be partnering with a publisher that's actually successful. There are many publishers that have sort of a mediocre success, and there's a big difference between the publisher that's actually done their own games and been successful at them than a sort of mid-tier publisher that's just bought a lot of games and doesn't actually really understand the process of developing. I think most of my most frustrating experiences in my past career, before mobile, before my relationship with GREE, have been with publishers that have people in charge who have never made a game before, never developed a game before, and look at the process of making a game from a completely different point of view. And it can be very frustrating. And I don't want it to sound like overly like a puff piece kind of thing, but seriously, in the dozens of publishers I've worked with in the past, I've been most happy with my relationship with GREE, mainly because they've been completely transparent as they're allowed to be. And so they make their own games, and those games have design docs and numbers behind them. And I like, well, how did you do that in this game? Here's a document. Like, what were the numbers that you started with for doing, the gotcha mechanics for this game? Here you go. And so that is something that I haven't experienced before with other publishers, and have been very happy with the openness that we have between the two companies.
That's cool. That's cool. And Alex, do you have anything to add from the publisher perspective?
Yeah, I mean, great point on sort of transparency. Like to me, like the most important is just being sure that the goals that you both have early on are the same and are very, very clear. Like, are we trying to build a game that gets tons of downloads, moves up and drops down, or are we trying to build a game that's going to be popular still in 2 years, right? How much do we want to spend, what features in, like those discussions need to happen early on, because you do not want to be arguing about those things as the game is going out, right? Of, oh wait, I thought that we were doing this, but we're actually doing this. We need to go back and totally change it. And I think just like trying to be really honest, early on, even before contracts get signed and money changes hands, of what is a success here is just so important. And I think again, that to me, that's why this relationship has gone well, just because all of that talk happened really, really early on. So when we came time to launch, it was more like, okay, cool, just turn it on. There was nothing like, wow, we did not think that we would be here or have done this. It was just, okay, we're all pumped to launch now.
Got it. Very good. Awesome. Thanks. So I think we've done a good job talking about some of the things that make publishing relationship with developers be very successful. I guess I'm curious, sort of open it up to questions to the audience in terms of things you would like to ask our panelists about publishing and being a developer in a publishing relationship. Yes, sir.
I'm curious, Ray, from your perspective, how did the relationship work in terms of defining the investment in customer acquisition? Was that contractually defined early on, or does it sort of evolve over the course of the game?
You mean the investment of how much they're spending on the product?
Yes.
Well, quite honestly, since I don't really deal with the contract, I don't know exactly, but I'm pretty sure that it was all lined out beforehand. But it really comes down to the momentum that the game has right now, and if the KPIs are where they need to be, then GREE is very happy to continue spending money to bring it up. And I don't get the feeling that this is going to get cut off when we reach some mythical, whatever mark. I think that if the numbers continue to be good, that they would continue to spend. It's certainly within their best interest and our best interest. Often, I think in all different situations, but in the crisis situation, they're really just trying to support us as a company and see us successful, so that we can continue to be successful together.
Okay, you in blue.
So, first of all, I'm a big fan of League of War. Awesome. The game, yeah, I love this game.
Sweet.
I'm
Excellent.
like level 100 already.
Wow, thanks. Keep spending money.
Yeah, so my question is actually about how do you decide how much percentage, let's say, you would like to get from your game before you even build it? Like, do you have some metrics or maybe a function you can, make a decision about the revenue share with the publisher?
No, I don't. I
Just like a
revenue
number
share. I mean,
like this?
it's a negotiation. Yeah.
Negotiation
It is.
process, right? It really depends on
it's
the.
really kind of like case by case and kind of like game by game what each party will
Bring to the
bring
table.
there, right?
Yeah.
So there's some where you're gonna do game design and marketing and this and that, and then obviously that would garner a
Right.
bigger share than something.
I'll add one thing though too is like we had done quite a bit of this game before signing the publishing deal with GREE, and we were looking at the early numbers that we were getting, and we were very happy with it. But we knew as a company that there was absolutely no way we would have been able to get it into the place that it needs to be without a considerable amount of marketing money, and that there was just nowhere that was going to come from. And so not just the publishing deal from the standpoint of helping pay for the development, but the marketing money has made a really big difference. Because we have some other games that I think are really fun games, but because we haven't been able to put marketing behind them, they haven't been able to rise up in the charts and get organic installs.
Right. So you knew already the ARPU numbers a little bit, and you had the game working, and then you made the decision with a bit more parameters, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Great, thanks. Sir, in the gray.
So how close to completion of the game did Monkey Fun think the game was when you guys talked to GREE, and how close did GREE think the game was to completion when you talked to Monkey Fun, and how did you negotiate that difference?
Well, I mean, we have a relationship with GREE prior to this particular publishing deal, and so we've been talking to them for a while, and I think that the game was ready to go out, but there was a lot of there's a lot of things to be added to it, and since it has originally been tested, we've added a lot of additional features. I think that in our mind, it was sort of a known quantity at the time we were negotiating the publishing deal because we did have initial numbers, and I think that was definitely a useful thing for us, I think, in the negotiation process.
Everybody, thanks very much for coming to Publishing 101. A round of applause for our panelists. Enjoy the rest of your day.